Okay, let's talk about a huge shift coming from the Reserve Bank of India. If you're involved with an NBFC, you really need to pay attention because your whole business model could be on the line. We're going to break down exactly what's going on.
So what's happening is the RBI is basically throwing out the old complicated system. With their new rules for 2026, they're bringing in a new framework that's, supposed to be simpler, but also a whole lot stricter for every single non-banking financial company out there.
And let's be really clear here, this is not just some small update. We're talking about a complete overhaul. It's going to force every NBFC in India to make some pretty big strategic decisions.
So the real question for you is your NBFC ready for this? Because it's not a matter of if you need a new game plan, but what that plan is going to be. All right, let's dive in and see what this all means for you.
All right, so at the core of this whole thing is a new, simplified system. The RBI is ditching all those old, confusing categories. Instead, they're creating just two clear paths, Type 1 and Type 2.
Okay, so this chart pretty much lays out the big choice every NBFC has to make. You're either a Type 1, meaning you don't take any public money and you don't deal with customers, or you're a Type 2, which is, well, basically everyone else. It all boils down to two simple questions. Where does your funding come from, and do you have a customer interface? Right, so to know where your NBFC lands, you've got to understand exactly how the RBI is defining two key terms. And believe me, these definitions for public funds and customer interface are everything. They're the foundation of this whole new framework.
Let's start with public funds. Now, you're going to want to lean in for this one because the definition is way broader than it used to be. It's not just about taking money from the public anymore. And here it is. This is the real game changer. Under these new rules, get this, even loans from your own directors and shareholders are now considered public funds. Same goes for money you get from group companies if they have access to public funds. The bottom line is, if it's considered an outside liability on your books, the RBI is now treating it as public funds. That's a huge shift.
Okay, next up is customer interface. And, you guessed it, just like with public funds, the RBI is casting a super wide net. They're defining it so broadly that it covers pretty much any interaction you have with the outside world while doing business.
Just look at these examples. It shows you how far this goes. Things you probably thought were totally internal, like lending money to a group company or even your own shareholders. Well, that's now officially a customer interface. And doing any of that automatically means you can't be an exempt Type 1 NBFC. The only real out is giving non-commercial loans to your employees. All right, so let's say you've checked the boxes. You don't have public funds, you don't have a customer interface. Well, if you want to be a Type I NBFC, there's one more major thing to consider, and it all hinges on one specific number. And that number is 1,000 crore rupees. Yep, that's the threshold. This is the asset size that decides whether a Type I NBFC has to register with the RBI or if it can fly under the radar as an exempt company.
So here's how it works. It's pretty straightforward. If your Type I NBFC has assets below that 1,000 crore mark, you can be exempt from registration. You just need your board to pass a resolution every year confirming that. But the second you hit or go over that threshold, boom, registration is no longer optional, it's mandatory.
Okay, that's a lot to take in, I know. So with all this coming down the pike, what do you actually need to do? Let's talk about the action plan. You're going to want to pay close attention to this timeline. Seriously, circle these dates. The new rules kick in on April 1st, 2026. From that day, a 6-month window opens up for any eligible NBFC to apply to deregister. That window slams shut on September 30th, 2026. And yeah, that's a hard deadline. And this is straight from the horse's mouth, the official word from the RBI. You have to submit that deregistration application through the Prava portal, and it has to be done within that 6-month period. No exceptions. If you miss it, you've missed your shot. So if you're thinking about deregistering, you'll need to get your ducks in a row. There's a checklist of documents. You'll need the original physical copy of your registration certificate, audited financials for the last 3 years. But the really crucial pieces are a certificate from your statutory auditor confirming you're compliant and a specific board resolution where you officially commit to playing by the Type I rules. Okay, so this is basically your strategic playbook. These are the action items for your board right now. First, you've got to dissect your funding structure, every single source. Second, size up your assets against that 1,000 crore threshold. Third, you need to scrutinize all your related party transactions to see what counts as a customer interface. Once you have all that clear, you can get your paperwork in order and make the big decision. Do we deregister, or do we register as a Type I or a Type 2?
At the end of the day, these new rules are forcing a really important strategic conversation that needs to happen in the boardroom. We're talking about way more than just compliance here. This is about the fundamental direction and future of your entire company.
Look, the RBI has simplified the game, but they've drawn some very sharp lines in the sand. So the crucial question you have to answer is, on which side of that line is your NBFC going to stand? Because that decision, well, it's going to define your regulatory future, how you operate, and your whole strategy for growth.